adjust to the upcoming election and the BJP's all-out attack on the Congress's newly elected president, Rahul Gandhi, accusing him of attempting to stall developmental projects in Gujarat during Narendra Modi's tenure as the Chief Minister of the state when UPA was in power at the centre. And this is what they have in the form of proof on your screen. Email shots, email grabs, exchanged between Rahul Gandhi and then Minister Jayanti Natarajan. The BJP is citing a trail of emails from 2011 between Rahul Gandhi's political secretary Kanishk Singh and then Environment Minister Jayanti Natarajan. The BJP claimed that Rahul Gandhi had attempted to block the establishment of factories for the Nirma project in Gujarat and had instructed her to not give environmental clearance for the same. The BJP also accused the Gandhi family of interfering in the work of the previous UPA government, claiming that Rahul Gandhi had also given then Environment Minister Jayanti Natarajan instructions on the Lavasa issue. These are both high-profile cases that have made headlines in India over the past few years. The BJP claims Jayanti Natarajan admitted to briefing Rahul Gandhi on confidential conversations between her and then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh over Lavasa. The BJP also claims that Rahul Gandhi instructed Jayanti Natarajan to clear the Amethi-Raebareli highway projects. Remember, this is Rahul Gandhi's Lok Sabha constituency. And was briefed by Natarajan on conversations between her and Manmohan Singh over the introduction of GM crops. The BJP claims Manmohan Singh was being undermined by ministers on the instructions of the Gandhi family. Joining us, WION's political editor, Kartikeya Sharma. Kartikeya, the charges are not new, but we've seen how email leaks damage the prospects of a party or individual. We've seen it happen in America, and these are very, very strong charges against Rahul Gandhi in particular.
Yes, Palki. The bails which have been, out there in the public is, I would say that they have not only damaged the Congress party, but what they do, Palki, is they reinforce the idea of a prime minister without political authority and Sonia Gandhi as a person with all the powers without authority. So, the sort of political campaign which Prime Minister, then the CM of the Gujarat launched against the Manmohan Singh is something which they're trying to tangibly prove. But I would say this in a context that Sonia Gandhi, through National Advisory Council, did have a say in terms of policy making. But in terms of Rahul Gandhi having a particular say on a particular project, I think that will be really very embarrassing for the Congress party because Rahul at that time was not even the Congress vice president.
This is the BJP's attempt at scoring a lot of points with one shot. It is not only saying that Rahul Gandhi and his family undermined the authority of the Prime Minister. It is not only saying that he tried to influence projects. Look at the language used. It says that the UPA government was being run by the family, meaning the Gandhi family, and the Ministry of Environment and Forest was being used as an extortion machine by this family, saying that Jayanti tax is essentially Rahul tax, implying widespread corruption at the behest of the new Congress president.
Palkia, I would divide my answer into three parts. One, that this is all in context of the Gujarat elections. Bharatiya Janata Party is very nervous. Congress has done well. Rahul Gandhi has done very well in Gujarat. The second part is, yes, there is a problem with Jayanti Natarajan. She was sacked by the Congress president because of the fact that there were allegations of corruption. And if you remember, Jayanti Natarajan did a press conference against the Congress party saying that they forced her to do a press conference against Prime Minister, then CM Narendra Modi. Third thing is, these things to be revived again goes on to show that somehow the Congress party will have to deal with its past where UPA too survived on the TMC and the DMK leadership or the sort of support they gave. And secondly, it also goes on to show that when you make compromises in politics in terms of coalition, sometimes you have to pay it back in long run. And I think that's the bottom line. Because ultimately, if you look at the context of the Ram Sethu, ultimately that was a controversy created by DMK. The price had to be paid by the Congress party. And that's the real problem. But nonetheless, for me, as a journalist, It boils down to the Gujarat elections, the interviews given by Rahul Gandhi, and the counter answer which the Bharatiya Janata Party is trying to prepare for tomorrow's voting, which takes place in the most crucial areas of BJP, which is Baroda and Ahmedabad.
Right, and development is an issue on which the BJP is getting a mixed response, Kartikeya. The GST and demonetization have hit some sections in Gujarat, and so look at the response. Look at the rejoinder coming in. The BJP's charge that the Gandhi family was willing to kill jobs and economic development in Gujarat to hurt then Chief Minister Narendra Modi. They're talking about the Nirma project. So this is an attempt to counter and to undermine the position or the perceived gains of Rahul Gandhi on a lot of fronts.
Absolutely, because this says that the Gujarat development project should be seen in context of the problems created by the Congress party. But Gujarat development or the Gujarat model has to be seen in the context of social indexes also, Palki. Yes, BJP did very well when it comes to industry recruitment, but BJP did not do well, Palki, when it comes to hospitals, primary health centers, or to say the educational centers. But those are the part of the complex debate. My point is one. The Gujarat elections tomorrow are crucial for Bharatiya Janata Party because BJP has made it about the prestige of the Prime Minister rather than what the BJP should be in Gujarat. And that is why you have all the national issues coming in rather than local issues speaking for itself, Palki.
Indeed, and these are very, very serious charges. Rahul Gandhi dictating the Amethi-Raebareli highway projects is what the BJP claims. On GM crops, which was another very controversial issue that made headlines in India for very many years in the past, it says that the minister, that is Jayanti Natarajan, briefs Rahul Gandhi on instructions issued to her from the PMO and the conversation between the Prime Minister, then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and her, and specifically mentions how she was opposed to introduction of GM crops. This list of accusations against the Congress, the new Congress president, also essentially says that Jayanti Natarajan was one of the many ministers who was running the extortion machinery of the Gandhi family. And this is important, they say, since Rahul Gandhi is campaigning in Gujarat and trying to showcase how the Congress is more sensitive and inclusive, and when in reality, the BJP says it is quite the opposite. The BJP essentially saying that they're exposing the Congresses in general and Rahul Gandhi's doublespeak in particular, Kartikeya.
See, I think you have made a very pertinent point. There's two things there. Bharatiya Janata Party has been able to corner Congress party on the issue of corruption, Palki. But the larger issue is that an appeal which the Bharatiya Janata Party has been able to maintain during the Gujarat elections? I don't think so. But then, yes, Bharatiya Janata Party has been able to revive something which in terms of, I would say, memories, in terms of narrative about what it used to be before 1996. So I would say that the Bharatiya Janata Party is relied on cultural nationalism, a fear of what used to be sort of a Muslim mafia, or where the majority had a minority complex. So in this context, I would say that the BJP's campaign rests. Rahul Gandhi, on the other hand, was resting his campaign on GST, economic policies, and issues related with farmers' debt. But Prime Minister, in my understanding of the 8 days which I was there, decided to fight the election in context of whether majority felt comfortable with the larger political equations of the Congress party.
Absolutely.
And I feel Palki, that this election took place in the context of majoritarian politics versus secular politics.
Absolutely.
And I think this is where the answer lies. And the Gujarat election will tell us how the 2019 election will fall.
Right, and we're waiting for the Congress to respond. Very, very serious charges. Kartikeya Sharma, thanks very much for the moment. We haven't heard the last of it, of course. But the timing of these accusations, of these emails being leaked is very, very significant. It's the second and final phase of polling in Gujarat tomorrow. And India, in fact, India has seen its best and worst political reactions, political antics in the run-up to these polls. What is at stake for either side? A lot, clearly, given the kind of language being used and the kind of accusation being hurled. For the BJP, it's a prestige battle. Gujarat is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's home state. He was Chief Minister there for 12 years. For the Congress party, this election is a battle for survival. Kartikeya Sharma's report on the intense campaign in the state.
The state, Gujarat. The players, Gujarat's own Narendra Modi and Congress's new president, Rahul Gandhi. At stake, prestige and survival. Gujarat saw an intense showdown between Rahul Gandhi and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Both campaigned extensively but differed in the style and substance of their outreach to voters. The only thing which was similar was that both started each campaigning day by visiting a temple. This time, Rahul wore soft Hindutva on his sleeve. He was seen wearing rudraksh and tilak, which remained on his forehead through the day.
इलाज करवाना है, प्राइवेट अस्पताल में जाइए, लाखों रुपए दीजिए, फंडामेंटल्स है। तो ये मतलब ये तो बिल्कुल आसान था हमारे लिए एक प्रकार से। डिस्ट्रैक्शन करते रहते मगर इस बार सफल नहीं होगा। इस बार गुजरात ने मन बना लिया है।
In a first, Congress started its campaign way earlier than BJP. It crafted a poll campaign around economic issues while not allowing leaders to attack the Prime Minister directly. Manishankar Iyer was suspended for his nasty jibe at Modi, senior leaders were denied helicopters, and all leaders were asked to go door to door and on the road. The Congress also decided to rely on humour, and some of its social media campaigns went viral. The BJP, on the other hand, went for a high-pitched campaign.
શ્રીમાન મણિશંકર અય્યર એમણે કહ્યું આ મોદી તો નીચ જાતિનો છે આ મોદી તો નીચ છે.
Most leaders, in order to polarize the electorate, spoke on issues like Pakistan and curfew Raj. Since the Congress relied on patidar agitation, the BJP tried pitting nationalism against caste-based alliance. Their effort was to ensure that they retain seats in urban areas. Posters called Ahmed Patel Congress's chief ministerial candidate. The campaign was built around Gujarati pride and Narendra Modi. The sole focus remained on Rahul Gandhi. Despite the mandir and niche gaffe by Congress leaders, Rahul Gandhi ensured that the pitch remained on economic issues. Whatever the result may be, Congress gave the BJP, which has ruled the state for 22 years, a tough fight. WION.
Let's turn to the big international headlines that we are tracking. It's a very significant development. The U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has said that Washington is willing to talk to North Korea without any preconditions. Tillerson's comments appear to indicate a shift in the American position from the previous demands that Pyongyang disarm before any talks can be held. But Donald Trump's White House maintained the president's views have not changed. So is the U.S. divided on the issue of how to tackle North Korea?
North Korea sent a message with this missile test in end November. The breakthrough intercontinental ballistic missile put the entire United States mainland within range of its nuclear weapons. The act further strained U.S.-North Korea relations. But now, U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has offered to begin direct talks with North Korea without preconditions, backing away from a key U.S. demand that Pyongyang must first disarm before any talks can be held.
We've said from the diplomatic side, we're ready to talk anytime North Korea would like to talk. And we're ready to have the first meeting without precondition. Let's just meet, and we can talk about the weather if you want. We can talk about whether it's going to be a square table or a round table, if that's what you're excited about. But can we at least sit down and see each other face to face?
Tillerson insisted on a period of quiet first, without any nuclear or missile tests. Though Tillerson's statement appeared to shift the U.S. position away from previous demands, the White House later said President Donald Trump's view on North Korea had not changed. The statement said the president's views on North Korea have not changed. North Korea is acting in an unsafe way not only towards Japan, China and South Korea, but the entire world. North Korea's actions are not good for anyone, and certainly not good for North Korea.
For years and years and years, if a Secretary of State in the United States made an announcement like what Rex Tillerson did today, it would be assumed then that this would be definitely the cohesive approach of the White House and the entire presidential administration. But these days, we simply don't know. So often, Rex Tillerson has said one thing, but President Trump himself has said something almost completely contradictory. So we don't know if the Trump administration, if President Trump himself, is all in with this approach by Rex Tillerson.
In the meantime, North Korea state media said Kim Jong-un had vowed his country would become the strongest nuclear power and military power in the world. But is that only posturing? For the final word comes from the United Nations political chief, Jeffrey Feltman, who recently returned from a 4-day visit to Pyongyang.
Time will tell what was the impact of our discussions, but I think we've left the door ajar. And I fervently hope that the door to a negotiated solution will now be opened wide.
There seems to be a diplomatic churn on the Korean peninsula, but exactly what it means is not clear. Will the U.S. talk to the North? Is Trump okay with that? Will saber rattling now end? Here's waiting and watching. Bureau Report, WION.
Joining us this evening, Dr. Robert Edwin Kelly, American political analyst on inter-Korean affairs, with us from Seoul this evening. Professor James D.J. Brown, Professor of Political Science at Temple University in Japan, joining us from York in England. And Professor Timo Kivimaki, International Affairs expert, also from the UK. He's joining us from Bath. Good evening to all of you. Dr. Kelly, let me begin with you. For whatever Tillerson's statement is worth, what does the shift in America's position really mean for the equation with North Korea?
Well, I think it means that the Trump administration, or at least Secretary Tillerson, is somewhat desperate for a deal. I think perhaps he realizes that the Trump administration is looking to strike North Korea. I think the White House probably believes it's getting close to time to strike North Korea. And Secretary Tillerson would like to head that off. It may also be the case that Secretary Tillerson is leaving soon, the secretaryship, and maybe looking to strike a deal or otherwise go out with a bang, get some kind of big agreement under his belt before he leaves. There are a lot of rumors that he's leaving soon.
Professor Brown, did Washington really have any other option? Should they have made this offer earlier?
Well, it's certainly been the case from the Chinese and the Russian side that the U.S. position was wrong, that it always should have been the case that the U.S. should have been willing to engage in talks. So at least from that perspective, they will take the view that the U.S. has now corrected a mistaken position. But clearly there's uncertainty here because we don't know whether this is a change in the U.S. position or whether we're simply seeing a case of a big split between the State Department and the White House.
Professor Kivimaki, how do you see this going forward? If Donald Trump is on board, is he conceding that his bluster failed? If he's not on board, what does it do to the stature of the president, and what will be the shape of these talks if the administration in Washington is divided on how to go forward?
I wouldn't be sure that the administration is divided on this matter. It has been often the case during Trump administration that he's willing to delegate a lot of power to different administrative arms. In this case, I wouldn't be so sure that there is a division between the State Department and the White House. Donald Trump and his administration is a businessman administration. They are interested in relationships. Donald Trump himself often talks about how he wants to get along with different world leaders. This is getting along. I mean, talking to potential enemies is part of his political culture.
Right. Dr. Kelly, will this be seen then as advantage Kim Jong-un? He dug his heels in and forced Washington to come to the talking table, at least make the offer.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I don't think the Kim family will respond. I think Kim Jong-un will not actually come back. I think the Kims right now will persist with the program. They will continue to try to finish the nuclear weapon program as much as possible so they can strike anywhere in the continental United States. And then in a year or two, they'll come back and say they want to talk. They don't want to talk right now because they're really on the cusp of having a fully functional intercontinental nuclear weapon. And so I don't actually think that they will respond to Secretary Tillerson's offer. I think what they'll do rather is just wait, try to finish the program, and then come back in a few years.
Professor Brown, your take on this. Will Kim Jong-un agree to come and talk? And what sort of precedent does this set for other countries, other supposedly rogue leaders who want to develop nukes, and for America's policy, America's strategy of sanctions and threats?
Well, I think the conclusion drawn from the North Korean regime will be that their policy has worked. And as has just been said, it would seem to make sense from their point of view now to continue to push so that they can actually finalize their nuclear capabilities so that they are in a really strong position before talks would begin. So I think that, yes, that's certainly how it would be seen. One thing I'd like to say, however, is it's also interesting what this will do in terms of the US's relationship with Japan. Now, Japan has taken a very strong position in supporting what they believed was the US position of not agreeing to talks without the precondition of North Korea committing to denuclearization. Now the US position has changed, and that seems to place the Japanese government in a very awkward position. They have said that there is no point in talks for talk's sake. They believed that they were on the same page as the United States on that issue, and now they seem to have been contradicted.
And Professor Kivimaki, where does this leave countries like Japan and South Korea? Do you see a role for China, for instance, in the talks, if the talks happen?
I think before China, I think we have to emphasize the role of South Korea. I think it's quite clear that even if this new development puts Japan in an awkward position, it puts South Korean regime in a much better position. South Korea has been often seen as left out of these developments, especially the most aggressive developments. The current presidential team in South Korea is extremely strongly in favor of dialogue, and I think even when it comes to Tillerson's recent declaration, I think there's a strong voice from the South Korean president and presidential office in this declaration.
We'll see how it plays then. Dr. Kelly, Professor Brown and Professor Kivimaki, thanks very much. And America's approach towards North Korea is not the only bone of contention between Donald Trump and his Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. In fact, in the 300-odd days that Trump has been in office, the two leaders have sparred on several occasions. Take a look.
He's here. Rex is here. It's laughable.
They may try to deny it, but the growing divide between US President Donald Trump and his Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is out there for the world to see. They have rarely seen eye to eye. Their disagreements have often become public through leaked private conversations, contradictory talking points, and unfiltered tweets by the president himself. In the 300-odd days that Trump has been in office, there have been at least 8 occasions when he and Tillerson have publicly butted heads. When US intelligence agencies claimed Russia had used hacking and political misinformation to influence the 2016 presidential elections, Trump remained unconvinced and said it could have been that a lot of people interfered. Tillerson, on the other hand, was clearly concerned and said he tried to help the Russian government understand how seriously it had damaged the relationship between the US and Russia. In August, a rally by neo-Nazis and white supremacists in Charlottesville, Virginia, took a deadly turn after a counter-protester was killed when a white supremacist drove a car into a crowd. While Trump condemned the incident, he made the now famous claim that there is blame on both sides and that there were very fine people among the far-right protesters. In an apparent effort to distance himself from Trump's comments, Tillerson later said the president speaks for himself. As America's war in Afghanistan drags on, Tillerson and Trump are still divided over whether to continue to try to eradicate the Taliban or shift to a more diplomatic approach. In an address to military personnel in Virginia in August, Trump made his position clear. He said, and I quote, "Our troops will fight to win. From now on, victory will have a clear definition. Attacking our enemies, obliterating ISIS, crushing Al-Qaeda, preventing the Taliban from taking over Afghanistan, and stopping mass terror attacks against America before they emerge." Soon afterwards, Tillerson advocated a different strategy. He said, and I quote, "You will not win a battlefield victory. At some point, we will have to come to the negotiating table and find a way to bring this to an end." While Tillerson advocated for staying in the Iran nuclear deal, Trump went against his Secretary of State's advice and decertified Iran's compliance with the accord. When Donald Trump withdrew from the Paris Climate Accord that his predecessor Barack Obama had signed, the decision did not sit well with Tillerson. Faced with angry allies, Tillerson tried to do damage control by saying the US could remain in the Paris Climate Accord under the right conditions. When Tillerson was tapped to lead the State Department, his relationship in West Asia, forged during his tenure as the CEO of ExxonMobil, was seen as a major asset, and he pushed for the US to take a neutral position in the region. But in June, the president threw his weight behind Saudi Arabia in a series of tweets, where he accused Qatar of funding terrorism, undercutting statements Tillerson had made days earlier. It was the most direct public dispute between the two leaders when Trump disavowed Tillerson's diplomatic approach towards North Korea on Twitter. One day after Tillerson stated that he was going to try to open the door for talks with North Korea, Trump undermined his efforts, tweeting to say, and I quote, "I told Rex Tillerson, our wonderful Secretary of State, that he is wasting his time trying to negotiate with Little Rocket Man." Trump and Tillerson have repeatedly clashed over the proper way to handle North Korea's aggressive stance towards the US. While Trump has been in favor of military action, Tillerson hopes to use back channels to reach a consensus with Pyongyang. Tillerson's frustration and anger with Donald Trump came to a head when, in a private conversation with fellow US officials, an exasperated Tillerson allegedly called Trump a moron. In typical style, Trump said he would be happy to settle the question of his intelligence once and for all and challenged Tillerson to an IQ test. Trump hasn't made Tillerson's job easy, and their differences are visible in the incoherence of America's foreign policy. Bureau Report, WION.
Talk about public differences. One is the world's most powerful man. The other is a dictator whose word is law in his country. For several months now, the world has watched with bated breath as Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un have traded insults and threatened each other with dire consequences if the other were to put a foot wrong. Here's a look back at the exchanges between these two leaders.
As the crisis over North Korea pursuing its missile and nuclear programs worsened, sample Donald Trump's attempt at getting a recalcitrant dictator to the negotiating table. On the 8th of August, after North Korea had test-fired an intercontinental ballistic missile, Trump came out with his now famous tweet. "If North Korea makes any more threats to the United States, they will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen." On the 11th of August, Trump followed it up with this gem, which took the breath out of many diplomats. "Military solutions are now fully in place, locked and loaded should North Korea act unwisely. Hopefully, Kim Jong-un will find another path." But this was just the beginning. Breaking new ground in diplomatic protocol, Donald Trump soon followed it up with another tweet. "I spoke with President Moon of South Korea last night. Asked him how Little Rocket Man is doing. Long gas lines forming in North Korea. Too bad." To many, Trump's approach resembled so much rhetoric and bluster which would not yield any significant results. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, who has been advocating a more nuanced approach, was indirectly told off by his president, obviously in a tweet. North Korea has interpreted America's past restraint as weakness. This would be a fatal miscalculation. Do not underestimate us and do not try us. Trump brought his personal touch when he tweeted about Kim Jong-un. Short and fat. Why would Kim Jong-un insult me by calling me old when I would never call him short and fat? Oh well, I try so hard to be his friend, and maybe someday that will happen. Kim Jong-un has never responded through Twitter. Rather, he relied on state-run media and his favorite news anchor, known as the voice of death.
North Korea's recent testing of a new, more powerful intercontinental ballistic missile carries with it a message from its leader Kim Jong-un that he will never give up on nuclear weapons, that he sees the security of his regime linked to his nuclear status. In that sense, he will not make the mistake dictators like Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi did. In 2016, the state news agency of North Korea said that countries that gave up their nuclear weapons could not escape destruction. It said, and I quote, the Saddam Hussein regime in Iraq and the Gaddafi regime in Libya could not escape destruction after being deprived of their foundations for nuclear development and giving up nuclear programs of their own accord. Observers say Pyongyang understands that possession of nuclear weapons is the only guarantee it will not be invaded. Wary of the US and South Korea's intentions, the chances are highly unlikely that Kim Jong-un would give up his nuclear weapons. Clearly, for North Korea, its nuclear program is about maintaining its security and sovereignty, an insurance check, if you will, and probably nothing or nobody can convince it to give them up. For the US to insist on North Korea giving up its nuclear weapons is hypocritical, some would say. Perhaps the US and with thousands of nuclear weapons in its arsenal should set an example by giving up its own first. And any decision to talk to North Korea would be well received in the region, we understand, especially in Beijing and Seoul. Japan can also be expected to go along, given its insecurities about North Korea's missile arsenal. US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson had said that he's ready for talks with North Korea without preconditions. It's being seen as a major advance on Donald Trump's warnings of raining fire and fury on the North, followed by insulting tweets. But pending clarification from Washington about exactly what its policy could be, let's take a look at how some of the prominent actors in this region could react to these developments. China, Japan and South Korea, they've all been closely monitoring developments on the Korean peninsula, while Donald Trump has in the past accused China of not doing enough to get the North Korean regime to the negotiating table, including stopping the flow of oil. China has not gone beyond some cosmetic measures. In fact, China wants Trump to talk directly to the North.
We hope the United States and the DPRK will go to meet in the middle from different directions, taking meaningful steps for dialogue. China will continue to play a constructive role in promoting peaceful resolution to the Korean Peninsula issue through dialogue and consultation.
China's stand has won South Korea's quiet backing. President Moon Jae-in is currently in Beijing, and the pundits say his diplomacy on the North could well parallel China's. China may push for closer South-North economic ties as a way of reducing tensions and building greater dependencies. It would also mitigate the impact of United Nations sanctions. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, for one, has sounded tough warnings about North Korea's missile tests that have transited his country's airspace. But he may have no objection if dialogue of some kind can get the North to do less saber-rattling. India has no doubt that the US and Pakistan will continue to play ball despite the many irritants in the relationship. The US refusal to target the Lashkar-e-Toiba and focusing only on the Haqqani network underscores its determination to protect American lives in Afghanistan. But what Rex Tillerson, the US Secretary of State, says about dealing with Pakistan makes for interesting reading.
Rex Tillerson does not enjoy dealing with Pakistan. The US Secretary of State warned that his country's relationship with Pakistan was in a state of drift, largely because of Islamabad's unwillingness to stop backing terror groups. During a town hall with State Department employees, he warned that the same terror groups would consume Pakistan.
Pakistan has allowed so many terrorist organizations to find safe haven within its territories, and these organizations are growing in size and influence, that at some point I have said to the leadership of Pakistan, you may be the target.
Tillerson said Pakistan remained a valued partner of the US, but providing safe haven for groups like the Haqqani network, which was targeting US troops in Afghanistan, underscored the major fault in the relationship.
That Pakistan has to begin the process of changing its relationship with the Haqqani network and with others. I understand that this is a relationship that has emerged, probably for, in their view, good reasons a decade ago, but now that relationship has to be altered because if they're not careful, Pakistan is going to lose control of their own country.
Analysts say despite the tension, mistrust and divergent interests, the two sides have incentive to remain reluctant partners. Washington sees Pakistan's cooperation as crucial to saving American lives in Afghanistan. This is where Pakistan's ties to the Haqqani network are valuable. Why do US and Pakistan need each other? Washington needs Pakistani support to ensure smooth flow of supplies to its forces in Afghanistan. Washington also needs Pakistani intelligence support to target Al-Qaeda and Islamic State in the region. Pakistan needs America to ensure the flow of economic aid, including cheap loans. For Pakistan's army, there are obvious perks in maintaining relations with the US. This explains why the US de-linked the Lashkar-e-Toiba from the aid certification requirements for Pakistan. It explains why the US will give India drones but will not target the Lashkar, even though long-term, the groups will threaten the US presence in Afghanistan. For its part, Pakistan has kept the Lashkar on a tight leash. But if there is a meltdown in the Washington-Islamabad relationship, expect Islamabad to unleash the dogs of war. Bureau Report, WION.
In times of earthquakes and natural disasters, the Indian Army is among the first responders. Otherwise, it sticks to its job of keeping the nation's borders secure. But the Pakistan Army is the backseat driver in Islamabad. It's a well-known secret. And the Chinese see the army as perhaps the only body that can guarantee that the China-Pakistan economic corridor will be successful. More so, given security concerns and, of course, corruption.
In India, the army is generally not seen in public except in the event of a natural disaster or some emergency. Contrast this with Pakistan, where a foreign power, China, wants the Pakistan army to oversee the $50 billion China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC. Partly, this may be driven by China's growing concerns over the safety of more than 15,000 Chinese workers deployed on CPEC projects from Balochistan to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Punjab. Partly, it reflects the fact that the Pakistan army is the power behind the throne in Islamabad. It could also be because of corruption. Local Pakistani media has reported that at least 2 highway projects were not awarded to the lowest bidder. No reasons were given by the officials involved. No formal letter of acceptance was issued for award of these contracts. The Army Frontier Works organization lost a major contract because it does not give kickbacks.
If we can have regular talks at different levels and across various fields, we can reduce misunderstandings and find more common ground, as we call harmony in diversity in Chinese traditional culture. My personal suggestion for this meeting is that we should have more mechanisms for communication.
The conduct of former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif is under the scanner. Reports say he set up a special CPEC monitoring unit in his office in May when he was still Prime Minister. That was with his daughter Mariam supervising it. The reports say his aim was to channel projects to his home province Punjab, which could help him during elections later next year. The government has been faulted for not being transparent about CPEC. Local media say food security is being subordinated to the requirements of Chinese companies wanting fertile agricultural land. A 4-kilometer-long highway in Karachi is now seen to benefit a proposed Chinese holiday resort. Massive land acquisition is underway in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa to house Chinese personnel, but this has not been made clear. The government seems to have woken up. Early next week, it is expected to issue a detailed statement on the long-term plan regarding CPEC. Of course, it has done this before and fudged issues further. Little wonder the normally secretive Chinese have insisted on a transparency agreement.
The Organization of Islamic States is holding an emergency meeting in Istanbul today. The summit was called to decide on a common line of action against Donald Trump's decision to move the US Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to the contested holy city of Jerusalem. Turkey, which is currently chairing the 50 Muslim country group, opened the summit, heavily criticizing America's decision.
A permanent member of the United Nations Security Council is violating resolutions that has its own signature under it. My dear brothers, what then are we doing? What are we going to do? Firstly, the Palestinian state must be recognized by all other countries. We must all strive for this together.
Turkey has been among the first countries to criticize Trump's decision.
Yapılan açıklamalar her şeyden önce uluslararası hukukun açıkça ayaklar altına alınmasıdır. 1980 Birleşmiş Milletler'in bu konuda kararı var. sadece Amerika ve İsrail'den başka o kararı reddeden yok. Tüm dünya o karara sahiplendi. Şimdi farklı bir yöntemle ben yaptım oldu demek suretiyle bir açıklama yaptılar ve bu talihsiz adımla bölgeyi ciddi manada sıkıntıya sokacaklarına inanıyorum.
Trump's decision comes at a time when relations between Turkey and the US are at their lowest. Turkey considers the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces a terrorist organization and has repeatedly warned the NATO to be willing to distance itself. Ankara is negotiating the purchase of missile defense systems directly from Russia now. It will be the first time a NATO member buys sophisticated military equipment from a non-NATO member. The OIC is unlikely to take concrete action against Israel, though. The Turkish Foreign Affairs Minister specified, in fact, that they have no intention of imposing retaliatory sanctions. He invited the summit members to declare East Jerusalem as the Palestinian capital and call for Israel to withdraw.
We must encourage other countries to recognize the Palestinian state on the basis of its 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. At this point, another crucial subject is to ensure the unity and cooperation of our Palestinian brothers.
In an invitation to overcome the differences among Muslim countries, the Iranian President Hassan Rouhani invited all these countries to stand by Palestine.
باید موضوع فلسطین به موضوع اول جهان اسلام برگردد. با شکست داعش در عراق و سوریه و لزوم تداوم مبارزه با دیگر گروه‌های تروریستی نباید از خطرات رژیم صهیونیستی از جمله زرادخانه هسته‌ای این رژیم متجاوز که کل جهان را مورد تهدید قرار می‌دهد غافل باشیم. جمهوری اسلامی ایران آمادگی دارد با تک تک کشورهای اسلامی برای دفاع از قدس بدون هیچ گونه ملاحظه و پیش شرطی همکاری نماید.
Several OIC members had tough words for Trump's decision, but they've not agreed on any concrete action. So is this just another instance of token protests and lip service for Palestine? We leave that question to you. Do send us your responses on WIONnews.com. Let's turn to the question of Ram Sethu. Has the debate over that bridge finally been settled? And an American Science Channel show has said that there exists evidence that the bridge connecting India and Sri Lanka was in fact man-made and not natural. The scientific evidence could be a groundbreaking discovery with wide implications in India. Here's why.
The spotlight is back on the Ram Sethu once again. The bridge that connects India and Sri Lanka is at the heart of Hindu mythological belief. An American science show has cited images from NASA and quoted archaeologists to say there's evidence that the Ram Sethu is indeed man-made.
It looks to me like a rocky jetty, but this thing looks pretty big.
That the god Rama placed a bridge here connecting India to Sri Lanka. There are stones that have been brought from afar and set on top of our sandbar island chain.
These occur in an area where there's shallow waters, and sand could accumulate between the two land masses. The rocks on top of the sand actually predate the sand. So there's more to the story.
So why is the scientific evidence that the 50-kilometer stretch is man-made important for India? For one, it adds credence to the Ramayana's tale that the bridge was built by Lord Ram to reach Demon King Ravan's Lanka in order to rescue his kidnapped wife Sita. Hence the Indian name Ram Sethu. For years, the debate had been raging, with many dismissing the Ramayan's version on Ram Sethu as mythology. In fact, a shipping canal project proposed by the Congress-led government in 2005 would have required dredging the area and damaging the formation. It was blocked by the then BJP-led NDA opposition. A couple of years later, the Archaeological Survey of India had told India's top court that the shoals or islets are of natural formation, possibly created when the island of Sri Lanka separated from the Indian land mass. That stand had led to an outcry and was eventually withdrawn by the then Congress-led government in India. In fact, we had earlier reported from Ram Sethu to get viewers a closer look at the area itself.
आज हम आपको श्रीलंका के समुद्र के रास्ते राम सेतु के ऊपर लेकर चलेंगे। आपने आज तक सिर्फ सैटेलाइट तस्वीरें देखी होंगी राम सेतु की।
We had also found an ancient temple which is said to be the first place Lord Ram visited when he crossed the bridge and went over to Sri Lanka.
जैसे रामेश्वरम है, वैसे ही केतुश्वरम इस तरफ है, जहां पर आकर के जब राम सेतु बना उसके बाद भगवान राम ने आकर के यहां पर पूजा की।
For now, the American scientific evidence could bring back another raging debate to the center stage of Indian politics. Was there a temple in Ayodhya where Lord Ram was born, and should a temple now be built at the disputed site where the Babri Mosque stood? Bureau Report, WION.